So we are here in the center of the spiral jetty, and we're going to talk through a little bit of the rocks that make up the jetty, which are not, were not deposited here, were not formed here, but had been brought out here. And then we're also going to talk about the actual sediment that makes up what would be in the location of the spiral jetty. And so if we look at the jetty itself, it is made out of big chunks of basalt. So again, the spiral jetty is an art installation, and it was made by somebody actually taking pieces of the big basalt flow that's behind us up on the hillside and building this huge jetty out into the lake. And I think when it was first built, it was actually like just standing above the water. So this whole area was flooded when lake level was clearly much higher than it is today. Our most recent high stand for the lake was in the early 1980s. In 1983, we had a whole bunch of rain in the kind of couple years through there. Lake level was much higher, so it would have covered this whole flat and gone all the way up to our shoreline edge here. However, obviously, that is not the case anymore. And so again, we've got the jetty rocks, which are made of basalt, beneath us, and we've got the actual lake sediment, which is below us, and the lake that we can kind of see way out behind us. And so as for what the sediment is that we can kind of find underneath us out here is going to be a combination of sedimentary material that is coming from the lake. And so what we have here is a combination of salt, so salt that is forming through dominantly chemical sedimentary processes. So as that water shallows and evaporates, we leave behind dominantly halite, but we have some other kind of very potassium, potash salts that we call them. So these are the types of salts that we get at really high levels of evaporation. Which is what we see in our very hypersaline Great Salt Lake. We also have gray material kind of within and around here, and that is clays. So those clays are coming from physical sedimentary processes, where again, when the water and the waves are kind of coming up, they're carrying very, very fine-grained material, and that is clays. And especially as you kind of walk out onto the salt flats, you can see zones of gray and zones of white. And so the gray zones are clay, and then the white zones are salts, so we can see both of those out there. And then the other material that we have kind of within our sedimentary mixture here is actually ooids. And so we looked at ooids on the north shore of Antelope Island, and that's where a lot of those are forming. So they form from wave action, and then the hypersaline environment is very rich in carbonate. And so you get waves, and you can build what are basically little carbonate snowballs. And so they form these concentrically zoned carbonate grains that are sand-sized, and they're perfect little spheres. And we have those out here as well. And as Dr. Franz is going to talk to us about, those same little mini carbonate balls are probably also being formed through microbial interactions. And so a lot of the things that we think of in the Great Salt Lake as kind of purely chemical reactions, many of them are actually driven by the biology in the lake. And so the microbes in particular that live in the lake, they respire, right? They're eating, they're breathing, and as they do that, they're changing the chemistry of the water around them. And as they change that chemistry, they can drive chemical reactions and actually cause different materials to precipitate out of the water column. And so again, it's this interaction between physical processes of the wave action, chemical processes of that super, super, super salty water that is super saturated in lots of different ions. And then it's also microbial, so biologic interaction that's happening in there that is changing the chemistry of that water, and it is causing different materials to precipitate out of the water column, and it's kind of pushing those reactions so they happen faster and more easily. And so it's that combination of things that gives us the sediment in this particular area. And then on top of that, we have our art installation, which is these beautiful chunks of basalt that were carried out here to make our nice spiral, which again used to go out into the lake and now is sitting out on our salt flats. So our playa areas where we have the combination of salt, clays, and our ooids.